The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida. The Directory Dial-Up, where you meet Florida's podcasting talent. This is Jaime with the Florida Podcast Network, and I'm so excited to be bringing you another edition of the Directory Dial-Up, a series where we introduce you to the podcasting talent right here in Florida by spotlighting different podcasters who have submitted their shows to our directory. You can find our directory, by the way, by going to floridapodcastdirectory.com. Find the shows originating from your own backyard with the interactive pin map there. On this episode, representing St. Petersburg, I have Dianne A. Welcome, Dianne.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be on your show. Thank you.
Likewise. So I understand that you've been mentored for about 30 years in the areas of personal transformation and leadership and helping people break through barriers. Your show is dubbed as a show that helps smart, talented, and sensitive people navigate an often insensitive world. I think I got that right. It's kind of like couch sessions for entrepreneurs. I love it, but I'll stop and step back here. Give us a quick description of Someone Gets Me.
Well, Someone Gets Me was titled by my colleagues and my clients. It was like this universal thing. All of a sudden, every time someone would talk to me, whether it was about me helping them with business strategy as a colleague or friend, or me actually helping a client, they always look at me at the end with this kind of puzzled look and they go, wow, someone finally gets me. and then one of my other friends goes, everybody says that. That should be the name of your show. That should be the name of your tagline. So it's on my website, Visions Applied, and I'm actually writing a book called Someone Gets Me to go with the show. Because what I'm finding out is so many people are walking around feeling alone or like no one gets them or understands them. And I have a unique ability with my intuition and my connectedness to be able to get people in a different way. So the show is designed so that nobody actually feels alone, especially the visionary entrepreneur type or the person who's just trying to do something good in the world and looks around and doesn't see anybody who understands what they see.
Yeah.
And so it's really fun. It's fun to help people just come into themselves better and live their vision in a happy way instead of having that music still in them that doesn't get to come out.
Right. I mean, you certainly combine some unique elements into your podcast concept, business and kind of and that visionary aspect, but also the psychology of self-care and taking care of yourself and honoring, who you are and tapping into creativity. So what made you such an advocate for this topic?
Oh, well, I've been working in personal development, either through mental health or substance abuse recovery or all different kinds of things since I was a teenager, while I was in undergraduate school. So we're talking 30-something years. And the consistent thing has been when I look back on all the people attracted to me, that worked with me, or when I was a big center, the people who gravitated toward me were always the people who kind of didn't feel understood in the world, and they're very sensitive and trying to make it. And I had a way of helping them make it and be successful. And they still, years and years later, I had somebody call me yesterday that I helped 20 years ago just to say thanks, So it's just one of those heart-centered drives I have. I can't help myself.
I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah, and I have a lot of people around me that were telling me, you should do a podcast. You should do a podcast. And I've been on radio before, interviewed things, and I love it. And I've been on TV, and I loved it. And I'm like, a podcast, huh? All right, I'm going to do it. And I actually launched it 1 year ago today, which is so funny.
Oh, my gosh. Happy anniversary. That's exciting.
And within 21 days, there were people in 7 countries listening to it. And I didn't do any advertising or anything. And I'm like, whoa, maybe it's more important than I even realized. Mm-hmm. And so now it's like I'm more on fire with it. I love podcasting. I love the fact that people get to be inspired and feel good about their purpose and be on purpose with it and not have to be right here in St. Petersburg.
So when you were first starting out as a podcaster, I mean, was it intimidating? Were there stumbling blocks in those early, first few episodes? And how did you kind of navigate like, oh, great, I have a podcast. This is going to be awesome. And wait, how do I do this thing? Like, how did you first get started and get over any initial humps?
Well, a couple things. One is I had Chris and Katie Kremitzos in my corner,
Love them.
Katie is a genius at so many things, and so she was like, "Do it." Mm-hmm. And I now have a second podcast that's on meditation. So, and that was because Katie kept saying, "Do it." So then I'm like, "Okay, now what do I do?" And I kept saying to myself, I have podcast experts in my corner. All I have to do is take the next step. I have podcast experts in my corner to take the next step. And then I would just take the next step. And then one of my other friends who has a podcast said, well, here's a really cool editor. And so I hired her, and she is amazing. And so she does my intro and outro and that part because I like to learn techie stuff, but I really want to stay focused on content. So She does that. And she's amazing. So that's perfect. And that came through a friend who does podcasting. And so I just stayed open to all the resources that were hanging out around me. All I had to do is ask, and people were happy to help me. And then I realized this. It is so much easier than people think. A lot of people try to make it really hard. And I've gone to some, podcasters meetings, and they're saying, oh, it's so hard, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, it isn't. If you're on fire and you have a mission and you know who you're talking to, you can't stop yourself.
This is true.
And like, I'm going to be doing some of my next episode recording when we're done today. And I was just writing some ideas down, and it was several pages of ideas that just popped in this morning.
Yeah.
And so I think if you line your podcast up with what your personal authentic mission is, first of all, there's always somebody who's going to get it, but there's also, it makes it easy for content. So I find it to be much more fun and exhilarating and affirming for my journey and other people's journeys by putting voice to the things some people just keep silently in their head.
Well, you're tapping into something, because when you say it's easier than people think, and you also talk about, I think you can say that in part because you were very smart about it from the very beginning. Oftentimes when people get into podcasting, they get inundated with the weeds and all the things that they're not naturally drawn to that come with having to put a podcast out. Whether that's the technical side or whatever it is, they get intimidated by and sucked into the weeds instead of using their resources that are right at their fingertips. And sometimes we get too afraid to say, I need help doing this, or how can I find someone who does that? Or you don't feel like you're worthy if you don't do it all. So I'm here to say, people, you don't have to do it all. It's about what's the finished product going to be. And Dianne, you're making a very smart play and focusing on the content. I think most podcasters who are in it to spread a message, that's exactly what they should do, is try to focus on the content and leave it to others to do, the editing or the tech stuff that's not really part of their wheelhouse. So that was a very smart move on your part from the beginning.
Well, cool. Thanks. It was just kind of intuitive. But, the other thing when you're talking is I keep a beginner's mind, and I'm really good at what I do. I believe in hiring the experts. And when people work with me, they're over the top amazed. And so I find experts and I copy them. And so like when I first started podcasting, I had a mic. I don't even remember what kind of mic I had. It's because somebody had one, I didn't know what I was buying. Are you kidding?
You just copy and imitate.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they're good. They have podcasts. They're successful. That's what they do. That's what I'm getting. Well, I found out that there was background noise and I had to be in my closet, and I started listening to all the stories of Podfest and everything. And then I was talking to actually my guy who does my website, who has a very famous podcast. Actually, it's a network.
You can feel free to share names. I don't mind.
Oh, okay. Gabe Aloisi.
Oh, Gabe, I love Gabe. Actually, Gabe was a brief guest of mine on my former podcast, Curve the Cube. He got on episode 110, if I remember correctly. It's kind of weird that I remember. I think I remember correctly. But yeah, so I love Gabe. Gabe's a fantastic person.
Gabe did my website. My website is the most sexiest, amazing, off the chart website. And everybody comments, and that's the word
See,
they
Gabe,
use.
you just got associated with the words most sexiest and amazing. Aren't you happy?
Right, I know. Gabe, you win, right? Anyway, so he listened to one of my episodes, because he did, and a lot of people listened to him kind of act surprised, like, wow, that was really good. And I don't never know how to take that. Are you shocked that I'm as good as I am? Or I don't
Right.
know. But Gabe said, I listened to it, and you might want to change your mic. I go, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, if you get this ATR 2100 mic, it's not very expensive. You'll like it better. Mm-hmm. So I have a beginner's mind. If Gabe, who's an expert, says this other mic will serve me better, I immediately bought it. I didn't I didn't do anything. I followed directions from the expert, and I love that mic. And then when I was at Podfest, I was starting my meditation podcast because I'd written a meditation book, and then I have a meditation podcast that goes with the book. Mm-hmm. Gabe goes, you want a mic that's right up next to your mouth because you want to sound like you're in someone's ear. I said, great. Now what's that mean? Okay, so I went to one of the booths, and they said, oh, you want a headset mic? And I'm like, wait a second. I work with a post-sound recording engineer from Hollywood who gave me a headset mic for recording meditations years ago. Yeah. I have one of those at home.
There you go.
So I pulled it out. And I use that, and everybody loves a meditation podcast because that's what it sounds like. So I keep the beginner's mind, and I listen to the experts, and I credit them, and I copy them. So I have confidence then, right, in my product, so that I can then, again, focus on my content. And because I really want to inspire people. It matters to me that people are happy and live a better life, especially with this crazy world. And if one thing I say makes one person feel better, then I'm in,
there you go. So when you were first starting, how much thought did you give to your format before you cracked the mic? Or how much thought do you give to that on an ongoing basis? I know, there's so many different ways that you can present a show and a concept. How much thought did you put into that part of it?
Oh, hardly any.
Because I know some of your episodes have guests, some do not. Is that always on purpose? How does that all work for you?
It's all variety. I've had a guest not show up. And I only ask certain people that I know will align with what I'm doing. I just don't have any random people on there.
It's very smart. A lot of people fall into that trap of just being willing to have anybody on who wants to get on the other end of the microphone. That can be very dangerous. Stick true to your concept.
Well, like I have 4 episodes on overthinking that are actually the ripped audio off a workshop I taught because I teach live events a lot. So if I have good audio, then I will put it on my podcast for people so they can get the benefit because I'm intuitive.
There you go.
And I never repeat myself twice in anything. So you're either hear it or you miss it. And Gabe says it's a great marketing thing. I'm like, it's not a marketing thing. It's how I live. I didn't plan it that way. It's just how I am. So I started out with, all right, I have all these things I want to say to the world and all these people telling me to record it and put it out. So I started doing all these episodes and then and they were fun and it was nice. And then I'm like, you know what? I think I want to have some other people on here too. So I asked a couple people if they wanted to be interviewed. I didn't even really know what I was going to ask them. I just figured if I got them on the phone, I would intuitively know what to ask them, which is true. Everybody goes, man, you're an amazing interviewer. And I'm thinking, good, because I'm just going with it, right? And then I put out my book, Daily Meditations for Visionary Leaders, and it's a 366 days of different meditations and actions for visionary entrepreneur types. Mm-hmm. And in that book, some of the quotes are Chris and Krimitsos, Katie Krimitsos, Gabe Aloisi, a lot of current thinkers, along with the historical ones like Socrates and Gandhi and all of them. And so I got this brilliant idea that I should interview some of these current day thinkers about them, whatever they are about, to inspire people to bring their personal gift forward. And then today I'm going to record several solo episodes, and I like variety, so I alternate them so that you're not going to hear a bunch of interviews and then a bunch of me. You're going to hear an interview or two and then me, and so you can jump around if you want. Or you can just enjoy the variety because I think that as humans, we have deletion brains. We delete things we think we know that are coming. So nobody knows what I'm going to do next. and I'm predictably unpredictable, so it makes things fun.
Well, it makes sense because I remember hearing you describe yourself. I think you were talking about the difference between you and your assistant, maybe, about how your assistant is much more linearly organized and you're more visually organized and, fluid. So everything you're saying makes complete sense
Right.
based on who you are. But one thing, no matter what episode you're doing, that I found very what's the word I'm looking for? Skillful, was that you're very good at speaking to one person. And that's something that a lot of podcasters, I know I'd have difficulty. I keep wanting to say, oh my gosh, our listeners, or hey, you guys, that's a bad habit of mine. But you're very good at zoning in and speaking to one person. How did you key in on that skill? Was that a conscious thing for you?
I learned that skill because I'm an author and you're supposed to be writing to that one person, though it's difficult for me because I like to think of lots of people. But, and again, Katie and Chris and Gabe and every podcast person I know is successful said, think of that one person.
Yeah.
So to the best of my ability, I do. Sometimes I'm not so great at it. The other thing I do is my episode content is typically designed for one person. Mm-hmm. Like I'm going to do an episode very shortly when we hang up, and it's going to be called How to Find Calm Anywhere. And because I have several clients who have specifically said, I just can't keep inner peace with this craziness in the world. And there are specific ways to do that, and that I taught them. Mm-hmm. So when I record the episode, I'm going to be imagining them. Because if they're asking the question, there's somebody else out there who wants that information as well. So that's how I can zone in on one person, because I usually take, things. And if it's something I come up with myself, because sometimes I think this is a really cool, I need to talk about it. Like midlife suicide. I just did a book on midlife suicide. So I'm going to do a podcast episode on it and what I think about it and what to do. And so
and that's the front of everybody's mind right now too. Yeah.
Right. And one of my good friends' wife, and they're military, very strong people, she hung herself in their home with the family there.
Wow.
And she was midlife, and that didn't hit the news, but it hit me.
Yeah.
And them, and I'm helping them through that. And so part of what I'm going to do in that episode is speak about that it's not just the famous people who are suffering, folks. And who are we? We need to be a beneficial presence. So I always try to find something I can intellectually kind of focus on and speak to them. And then I imagine like little concentric circles. So I kind of spread it out a little bit. So it's not that personal, but still that one person that's the focus.
That's a brilliant way of thinking about it. And keeping those concentric circles means they all have essentially the same exact target. And that speaks volumes to your title. Someone gets me. And you're just very good at zoning in that specific target, making people feel like you're talking right to them. So brilliantly done. Alrighty, so it is time for the newest segment on the show, the 30-second soapbox. If you could knock everyone on the head and get them to understand one thing about a message you're passionate about, Dianne, what would it be? And go.
Each one of you, every person, I'm talking to you. You are here on purpose, with a purpose. You have a fire in you, that heart's desire that is meant to show up and be present in the world. So quit hiding, quit playing small, and quit running away from yourself. It's your turn. It's your time to be everything you're meant to be. So take all those fears, all those doubts, all that worry, all those cheap excuses, and get rid of them now.
Well done. All right. I love your message, and I think everyone should go and check out your show. So I focus on Florida podcasters here. I know you're from St. Petersburg. Tell us a little bit about St. Petersburg. What kind of things do you like to get into on the weekends? What do you like to do there?
Oh, I love St. Petersburg because it's a fun city. I've lived here for a long time, and I was raised in Sarasota. My favorite things in St. Petersburg are sailboat racing, because I race sailboats.
Oh, no way.
And I love the water, anything that has to do with the water. I love being on our beaches. Any of them are beautiful. I usually go down to Paso Grill Beach because it's got a more artistic vibe. And the other place I love is Gulfport, which is an artistic little community. I like that kind of small town feel, but yet big town fun too, because my office is downtown. That has all kinds of things. There's never a weekend in St. Petersburg without something to do. And a lot of it's free or very inexpensive. We have great museums and theater, but we also have art shows and Friday, First Friday, where you can just go downtown and enjoy all the shops that are open on Central Avenue, which is just really eclectic and fun. No matter, I could bring people here with all different views and interests, and we can walk down some of the streets here and everybody finds something that's for them, so
wow.
That's why I love the city.
Well, you know what, Dianne, I have my other show, Finding Florida, where we do adventures all over Florida, and we haven't hit up St. Petersburg. So when we do, I think we might have to take you along and help us plan it.
Sure, I'll be happy. I'll be happy to do that. I love doing that stuff, because it's really beautiful. I mean, like right now, it's raining like you would not believe. So it's
I would believe it.
It's a good day for ducks, but still.
Oh my gosh. Well, Dianne Allen, you are the host of Someone Gets Me. You were one of the first people to submit your show into the directory, so thanks so much for that. I understand you have your book, Daily Meditations for Visionary Leaders. Be sure to submit that other podcast to the directory too, by the way. But other than our directory, how can people find you, get in touch with you, find your book? I understand you have a Facebook group. Lay it all on the line.
Okay, my main website that has everything on it is visionsapplied.com. And that has this podcast, Someone Gets Me, is streamed there. And also my other podcast, which is Meditations for Visionary Leaders. That show just launched a few months ago. And the other way you can find me, if you are a Someone Gets Me fan, is we have a Facebook group that's called Someone Gets Me. Now you have to ask to be admitted into the group so that there are real people engaging in safe, amazing ways. I share information all there all the time. I also have a Facebook page, Visions Applied FL for Florida. And so every day on all of those platforms, I share some tidbit or some inspiration or some idea for my audience so that people can stay inspired and all of that kind of thing.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure, Dianne, speaking with you today. Thank you so much for coming on, and best of luck with everything else you're going to be doing with Someone Gets Me.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you this morning. You brightened my day so much.
Aw, thank you, Dianne. Thanks for checking out another edition of the Directory Dial-Up. Meet this podcaster and other local podcasting talent in the Florida Podcast Directory. Or, if you are a podcaster based in Florida yourself, submit your show. Simply head to floridapodcastdirectory.com to check out shows or for more information.